Amara, a quiet and bright little girl, comes to school every day with no shoes on, never once complaining about her situation. Despite her struggles, she continues to work hard. But one day, Miss Taylor, her compassionate teacher, notices Amara's bare feet and decides to take a deeper look into her life. What starts as simple concern soon turns into a heartbreaking revelation when Miss Taylor uncovers the reason behind Amara's struggles. Why has Amara been quietly enduring so much? What did Miss Taylor discover that left her and the entire community deeply moved to act? Stay tuned to find out. And before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from today. If this story of resilience and unexpected kindness resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The morning sun peeked through the windows of Oakwood Elementary, casting a warm glow across Miss Taylor's classroom. At 26, she was the newest addition to the school's staff, her enthusiasm for teaching still fresh and vibrant. As the children filed in, a kaleidoscope of faces and personalities, Miss Taylor's gaze fell upon Amara, a quiet girl with deep brown eyes and tightly braided hair. "Good morning, Amara," Miss Taylor greeted warmly. The child mumbled a soft reply, quickly making her way to her desk. It was then that Miss Taylor noticed Amara's feet were bare. The sight sent a pang through Miss Taylor's heart. She'd seen Amara in ill-fitting shoes before, but this was different. As the other children chattered and laughed, pulling out their pencils and notebooks, Amara sat silently, her toes curling against the cold linoleum floor. Miss Taylor's eyes swept across the room, taking in the diverse tapestry of her students. There was Tommy, whose parents owned the local grocery store, his backpack always bulging with snacks. Next to him sat Maria, daughter of the town doctor, her shoes shiny and new. And then there was Amara, hunched over her desk, trying to make herself invisible. "All right, class," Miss Taylor called, pushing her worries aside for the moment. "Let's begin with our morning math warm-up." As the lesson progressed, Miss Taylor couldn't help but marvel at Amara's focus. Despite her obvious discomfort, the girl's pencil never stopped moving, her brow furrowed in concentration. When it came time to share answers, Amara's hand shot up, her voice soft but confident as she explained her reasoning. "Excellent work, Amara," Miss Taylor praised, earning a fleeting smile from the girl. It was moments like these that made Miss Taylor's heart swell with pride and ache with concern in equal measure. During the mid-morning break, Miss Taylor watched as the other children raced to the playground. Amara lingered behind, her eyes darting longingly towards the door. "Amara," Miss Taylor called gently, "would you like to go outside and play?" The girl shook her head, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her worn sweater. "No, thank you, Miss Taylor. I'd rather stay inside and read." Miss Taylor nodded, her mind racing. She'd seen Amara wear the same tattered sneakers for months, but now, with no shoes at all, the situation felt dire. Yet Amara never complained, never asked for help. Her resilience was both admirable and heartbreaking. As the day wore on, Miss Taylor found herself constantly drawn to Amara. The girl's intelligence shone through in every lesson, her homework always neatly completed despite the challenges she clearly faced at home. During the writing exercise, Amara crafted a beautiful story about a bird learning to fly, her words painting a vivid picture of determination and hope. When lunchtime arrived, Miss Taylor noticed Amara pull out a small, crumpled paper bag. Inside was a single, slightly bruised apple. The girl ate slowly, savoring each bite, while her classmates dug into sandwiches and snack packs. Unable to contain her concern any longer, Miss Taylor approached Amara's desk. "Amara, sweetie, can we talk for a moment?" The girl looked up, her eyes wide with apprehension. "Yes, Miss Taylor?" Miss Taylor crouched down, bringing herself to Amara's eye level. "I couldn't help but notice you don't have any shoes today. Is everything okay at home?" Amara's gaze immediately dropped to her lap. "Everything's fine, Miss Taylor," she mumbled. I didn't want to trouble anyone." "Amara, you're not troubling anyone by needing help," Miss Taylor said softly. "If there's something wrong, you can tell me. I'm here to help." For a moment, it seemed like Amara might open up. Her lower lip trembled, and she glanced up at Miss Taylor with eyes full of unspoken words. But then, as quickly as it appeared, the vulnerability vanished. Amara straightened her shoulders and forced a small smile. Really, Miss Taylor, it's okay. I just forgot my shoes today. It won't happen again. Miss Taylor knew it was a lie, but she also recognized the pride in Amara's voice. This wasn't a child looking for handouts or pity. This was a girl determined to face her challenges head-on, no matter how daunting. As Amara returned to her lunch, Miss Taylor stood up, her mind whirling. She'd seen signs of struggle before, the too small clothes, the lack of school supplies, but this felt like a tipping point. Something was seriously wrong in Amara's home life, and Miss Taylor was determined to find out what. Throughout the afternoon, Miss Taylor found herself watching Amara more closely. She noticed how the girl winced when her bare feet touched the cold floor of the art room, how she hesitated before joining the line for PE class. Yet through it all, Amara remained focused, polite, and hardworking. During the last period of the day, as the class worked on a group project, Miss Taylor overheard a conversation that made her heart clench. "Hey, Amara," whispered Lizzie, a well-meaning but sometimes tactless classmate. "Where are your shoes?" Amara stiffened, her pencil freezing mid-sentence. I forgot them," she said quietly. "How do you forget shoes?" Lizzie pressed, her brow furrowed in genuine confusion. Before Amara could respond, Tommy chimed in. "Maybe her family can't afford shoes. My dad says some people in town are really poor." The tips of Amara's ears turned red, and she hunched further over her work. Miss Taylor was about to intervene when she heard Amara's soft, steady voice. "My mom works really hard," Amara said, not looking up from her paper. "And I have shoes. I just didn't wear them today." The other children, sensing the tension, quickly changed the subject. But Miss Taylor had seen the pain flash across Amara's face, the way her small hands had clenched into fists under the table. As the final bell rang and the students began packing up, Miss Taylor made a decision. She couldn't ignore this situation any longer. She needed to understand what was happening in Amara's life, to find a way to help without stripping away the girl's dignity. As Amara left the classroom, her bare feet padding softly down the hallway, Miss Taylor sat at her desk, her mind racing. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but looking at the empty doorway where Amara had stood, Miss Taylor made a silent vow. She would find a way to help this child, to lift some of the weight from those small shoulders. Because every child deserved a chance to just be a kid, to learn and grow without the crushing burden of adult worries. And Amara, with her quiet strength and brilliant mind, deserved that chance more than anyone. The streetlights flickered to life as Shanice trudged up the cracked sidewalk towards her small, weathered house. Her shoulders sagged with exhaustion, the weight of 2 jobs and countless worries etched into the lines of her face. As she fumbled with her keys, the sound of children's laughter drifted through the thin walls, a bittersweet reminder of the precious moments she missed every day. Stepping inside, Shanice was greeted by the sight of Amara helping her younger brother, Jamal, with his homework. The living room was sparse, with mismatched furniture showing signs of wear and tear. A stack of unpaid bills sat ominously on the rickety coffee table. "Mama!" Jamal exclaimed, jumping up to hug her. Amara followed, her embrace gentler, more reserved. "Hey, babies," Shanice said, mustering a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You eat dinner yet?" Amara nodded. "I made sandwiches for us, Mama. There's one for you in the fridge." Shanice's heart swelled with pride and ached with guilt simultaneously. Being so little, Amara was shouldering responsibilities no child should have to bear. "Thank you, baby. You're my little angel. You know that." As Shanice moved to the kitchen to grab her meager dinner, she noticed Amara's bare feet. The sight sent a fresh wave of shame through her. She'd been saving up for new shoes, but the latest rent increase had eaten away at their already tight budget. "Amara," Shanice called softly. "Where are your shoes, baby?" Amara's eyes widened slightly before she quickly composed herself. "Oh, I took them off earlier. They're in my room." It was a lie, and they both knew it. But neither had the heart to acknowledge the painful truth out loud. Later that night, after tucking the children into bed, Shanice sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and past due notices. The eviction warning glared up at her, the stark black letters a looming threat to their already precarious existence. Tears welled up in Shanice's eyes as she buried her face in her hands. She was trying so hard, working every hour she could, but it never seemed to be enough. The guilt of not being able to provide for her children properly ate away at her soul. "Mama," Amara's soft voice came from the doorway. "Are you okay?" Shanice quickly wiped her eyes, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, baby. What are you doing up?" Amara patted over, her small hand coming to rest on her mother's shoulder. "Don't worry, Mama. I know things are hard, but we're okay. I can help more. Maybe I can get a job after school." "No, Amara," Shanice said firmly, pulling her daughter into a tight hug. "Your job is to be a kid, to learn and grow. I'll figure this out. I promise." As Amara nestled into her embrace, Shanice made a silent vow to find a way, any way, to keep her family afloat. She just didn't know how much longer she could keep that promise. Back at Oakwood Elementary, Miss Taylor's concern for Amara grew with each passing day. She found herself watching the girl more closely, noticing details that had escaped her attention before. Amara's clothes, while always clean, were often too small or showed signs of extensive mending. Her sweaters stretched tight across her growing frame, and her pants rode high above her ankles. Despite the cooler autumn weather, Amara never wore a proper coat, instead layering multiple thin shirts. During lunch, Miss Taylor observed Amara's withdrawn behavior. While other children chatted animatedly over their packed lunches or cafeteria trays, Amara sat quietly, nibbling on small portions she'd bring from home. Sometimes it was just a few crackers or a single piece of fruit. One particularly chilly morning, Miss Taylor noticed Amara shivering at her desk. Without drawing attention, she casually draped her own cardigan over the girl's shoulders. "Here, Amara. The classroom's a bit cold today, isn't it?" Amara looked up, surprise and gratitude mingling in her eyes. "Thank you, Miss Taylor," she whispered, pulling the warm sweater closer. As the day progressed, Miss Taylor found herself grappling with a growing sense of urgency. She needed more information, a clearer picture of Amara's home life. During recess, she decided to carefully broach the subject with some of Amara's classmates. "Hey, Lizzie," Miss Taylor called to the girl who had questioned Amara about her missing shoes. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Lizzie bounced over, her pigtails swinging. "Yes, Miss Taylor. I was wondering if you know much about Amara's family. Have you ever been to her house or met her parents?" Lizzie's brow furrowed in thought. "No, I've never been to her house. She doesn't really invite anyone over. And I've only seen her mom once, at the school carnival last year. She seemed nice, but really tired." Miss Taylor nodded, careful to keep her expression neutral. "What about at lunch or during group projects? Does Amara ever talk about her home life?" "Not really," Lizzie replied, her voice tinged with confusion. "Amara's really quiet most of the time. She's super smart, though. She always knows the answers in class." Thanking Lizzie, Miss Taylor moved on to speak with a few other students. The pattern was the same. Amara was well-liked but kept to herself, never sharing details about her life outside of school. As the final bell rang, Miss Taylor watched Amara pack up her few belongings. The girl's movements were careful, almost reluctant, as if she was in no hurry to leave the warmth and safety of the classroom. "Amara," Miss Taylor called softly. "Could you stay back for a moment?" Amara approached the desk, her eyes wary. "Did I do something wrong, Miss Taylor?" "Not at all, sweetheart," Miss Taylor assured her. "I just wanted to check in with you. I've noticed you've been a bit quiet lately, and I wanted to make sure everything's okay at home." Amara's gaze dropped to the floor, her fingers twisting the hem of her too small sweater. "Everything's fine, Miss Taylor. Mama's just been working a lot, that's all." Miss Taylor leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Amara, you know you can talk to me about anything, right? If there's something going on, something you need help with, I'm here for you." For a moment, it seemed like Amara might open up. Her lower lip trembled, and she glanced up at Miss Taylor with eyes full of unspoken words. But then, as quickly as it appeared, the vulnerability vanished. Amara straightened her shoulders and forced a small smile. "Thank you, Miss Taylor, but really we're okay. I should go now." Mama will be worried if I'm late." As Amara hurried out of the classroom, Miss Taylor felt a mix of frustration and deep concern settle in her chest. She knew she needed to do more to find a way to help this child who was so clearly struggling. But how could she help if Amara wouldn't let her in? The next morning, Miss Taylor arrived at school early, determined to speak with the principal about Amara's situation. She found Principal Johnson in his office, already poring over a stack of paperwork. "Miss Taylor," he greeted her with a warm smile. "What brings you here so early?" Taking a deep breath, Miss Taylor launched into her concerns about Amara. The missing shoes, the too small clothes, the meager lunches, and the girl's increasing withdrawal. Principal Johnson listened attentively, his brow furrowing with concern. "I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, Miss Taylor. Amara's situation does sound worrying. Have you spoken with our school social worker, Mrs. Ramirez, about this?" "Not yet," Miss Taylor admitted. "I wanted to get your input first. I'm really worried about Amara, and I feel like we need to act quickly." Principal Johnson nodded thoughtfully. "I understand your concern, but we need to follow proper procedures in situations like this. Let's bring Mrs. Ramirez into the conversation. She has the training and resources to handle these delicate situations." A short while later, Mrs. Ramirez joined them in the principal's office. As Miss Taylor recounted her observations and concerns, the social worker listened intently, jotting down notes. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Miss Taylor," Mrs. Ramirez said when she had finished. "You're right to be concerned. However, we need to be careful about how we proceed. Poverty is a complex issue, and we don't want to make assumptions or take actions that could potentially make the situation worse for Amara and her family." Miss Taylor felt a flash of frustration. "But we can't just do nothing. Amara is struggling right now. She needs help." Mrs. Ramirez held up a calming hand. "I'm not suggesting we do nothing, but we need to follow established protocols. First, we'll send home a general notice to all parents about resources available for families in need. Then, we can schedule a parent-teacher conference with Amara's mother to discuss her academic progress. During that meeting, we can gently inquire about their home situation and offer support." "How long will all that take?" Miss Taylor pressed, unable to keep the urgency from her voice. "It could be a couple of weeks before we can get everything in place," Principal Johnson admitted. "We need to be careful not to single out Amara or make her feel different from her classmates." Miss Taylor nodded, understanding the need for caution, but feeling increasingly frustrated. As she left the office, her mind raced with thoughts of Amara, of her bare feet on the cold classroom floor, of her too small clothes and meager lunches. The idea of waiting weeks to help felt unbearable. Throughout the day, Miss Taylor found her gaze constantly drawn to Amara. She noticed how the girl winced when she sat down, her ill-fitting clothes clearly uncomfortable. During lunch, Amara picked at a single bruised apple, her eyes cast down as the other children enjoyed their full meals. By the time the final bell rang, Miss Taylor had made up her mind. She couldn't wait for bureaucratic processes to slowly grind into action. Amara needed help now. After the last student had left, Miss Taylor sat at her desk, staring at the small scrap of paper where she had jotted down Amara's address from her school records. She knew what she was considering went against school policy. A home visit without prior arrangement or official sanction could have serious consequences. But then she thought of Amara's quiet resilience, of the weight of adult worries visible in those young eyes. She thought of the girl's bare feet and growling stomach, of the shame and fear she must be carrying every day. Taking a deep breath, Miss Taylor made her decision. She would visit Amara's home that evening, after her second job ended. It was a risk, both professionally and personally, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it was the right thing to do. As she packed up her belongings and headed out of the school, Miss Taylor's heart raced with a mix of determination and apprehension. She didn't know exactly what she would find at Amara's home, or how her unexpected visit would be received. But she knew one thing for certain: she couldn't stand by and watch a child suffer when there might be something she could do to help. The sun was setting as Miss Taylor drove through the streets of their small town, the familiar landscapes giving way to neighborhoods she rarely visited. As she turned onto Amara's street, the change was stark. Gone were the well-maintained lawns and cheerful flower beds. Instead, she found herself navigating potholed roads lined with rundown houses and overgrown yards. Pulling up in front of the address she had scribbled down, Miss Taylor felt a knot form in her stomach. Amara's home was a small, weathered structure with peeling paint and a sagging porch. A flickering streetlight cast eerie shadows across the unkempt yard. Miss Taylor's heart pounded as she stepped onto the cracked sidewalk leading to Amara's home. Houses on either side stood silent and dark, some with boarded-up windows that spoke volumes about the neighborhood's struggles. Taking a deep breath, Miss Taylor made her way up the worn path. For a moment, she hesitated, her hand poised to knock. Was she overstepping? What if this only made things worse for Amara? But then she remembered the sight of Amara's bare feet on the cold classroom floor, the quiet dignity with which the girl faced each day despite her obvious hardships. Steeling her resolve, Miss Taylor rapped gently on the door. Seconds ticked by, feeling like hours. Finally, the door creaked open, revealing a woman who could only be Amara's mother. The family resemblance was striking, but where Amara's eyes held a spark of hope and resilience, her mother's were clouded with exhaustion and weariness. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her voice rough with fatigue. Miss Taylor summoned her warmest smile. "Mrs. Johnson? I'm Miss Taylor, Amara's teacher. I hope you don't mind me stopping by unannounced. I wanted to talk to you about Amara, if that's all right." Shanice's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with a mix of suspicion and fear. "Is Amara in some kind of trouble?" "No, not at all," Miss Taylor quickly reassured her. "Amara is a wonderful student. I've noticed some things that have me concerned, and I wanted to see if there was any way I could help." Shanice's posture stiffened, her hand tightening on the doorframe. "We don't need any help," she said firmly, though her voice wavered slightly. "We're managing just fine." Miss Taylor's heart ached at the pride and fear warring in Shanice's eyes. She knew she was walking a delicate line. "I understand," she said gently, "but as Amara's teacher, I care about her well-being both in and out of the classroom. I was hoping we could talk, just for a few minutes." For a long moment, Shanice stood frozen in the doorway, conflict clear on her face. Miss Taylor could almost see the internal struggle, the desire to protect her privacy warring with the desperate need for help. Finally, Shanice's shoulders sagged, as if a great weight had settled upon them. "You'd better come in," she said softly, stepping back to allow Miss Taylor entry. As she crossed the threshold, Miss Taylor had to stifle a gasp. The interior of the house was even more dire than she had imagined. A single bare bulb cast harsh shadows across the nearly empty living room. A threadbare couch with mismatched cushions sat against one wall, while a rickety table with 3 uneven chairs occupied the center of the room. The walls were bare save for water stains and patches where paint had peeled away. "Please have a seat," Shanice said, gesturing to the couch. As Miss Taylor sat down, she noticed the chill in the air. Despite the cool autumn evening outside, there was no heat in the house. Shanice perched on the edge of one of the kitchen chairs, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "What did you want to talk about?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Miss Taylor leaned forward, keeping her tone gentle and non-judgmental. "Mrs. Johnson, I want you to know that Amara is an exceptional student. She's bright, hardworking, and always eager to learn. But lately, I've noticed some things that have me worried about her well-being." Shanice's eyes flashed with a mix of pride and defensiveness. "I take good care of my children," she said firmly. "I'm sure you do," Miss Taylor assured her. "But I've noticed that Amara often comes to school without proper shoes, and her clothes seem to be too small for her. She's also been very quiet during lunch and seems to have very little to eat. I just want to understand if there's anything going on at home that might be affecting her, and if there's any way I can help." At the mention of help, Shanice's carefully maintained composure began to crumble. Her lower lip trembled, and she blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. "We're fine," she insisted, but her voice cracked on the last word. Miss Taylor's heart ached at the obvious pain in Shanice's eyes. She reached out, gently placing her hand on the other woman's arm. "Mrs. Johnson, Shanice, it's okay to need help sometimes. We all do. I'm here because I care about Amara, and I care about your family's well-being. Whatever is going on, you don't have to face it alone. Those simple words of kindness seemed to break the dam, holding back Shanice's emotions. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she covered her face with her hands. I'm trying so hard, she sobbed. I work 2 jobs, but it's never enough. The bills keep piling up, and I can barely keep food on the table, let alone buy new clothes or shoes for the kids. Miss Taylor moved to sit beside Shanice, wrapping a comforting arm around her shaking shoulders. You're doing the best you can, she soothed. No one could ask for more than that. As Shanice's sobs subsided, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I feel like such a failure, she whispered. Amara, she's such a good girl. She never complains, even when I know she's hungry or cold. She tries to help with her little brother, and she even offered to get a job after school. Shanice's voice broke again. She's a kid. She shouldn't have to worry about these things. Miss Taylor nodded, her own eyes filling with tears. Amara is an incredible child, but you're right. She shouldn't have to carry these burdens. That's why I'm here. I want to help, if you'll let me. Shanice looked up, a glimmer of hope breaking through the despair in her eyes. How? We've already applied for every assistance program out there. The waiting lists are months long, and we're facing eviction next week if I can't come up with the rent. Before Miss Taylor could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Mama, is everything okay? Both women turned to see Amara standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with concern. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt as a nightgown, and her bare feet peeked out from beneath the hem. Oh, baby, Shanice said, quickly wiping her eyes. Everything's fine. Miss Taylor just stopped by to talk about school. But Amara was too perceptive to be fooled. Her gaze darted between her mother's tear-stained face and Miss Taylor's concerned expression. Suddenly, understanding dawned in her young eyes. It's because I didn't have shoes, isn't it? She said, her voice small and filled with shame. I'm sorry, Mama. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I thought if I didn't ask for new shoes, we could use the money for food instead. Shanice let out a strangled sob, opening her arms. Amara rushed into her embrace, her own tears now flowing freely. You didn't do anything wrong, baby, Shanice murmured, stroking her daughter's hair. This isn't your fault. Miss Taylor felt like an intruder witnessing this raw, intimate moment between mother and daughter. But she also knew that this was a turning point. The secret was out, the struggle laid bare. Now was the time to offer real, tangible help. Gently, she placed a hand on Amara's shoulder. Amara, sweetheart, your mom is right. You haven't done anything wrong. In fact, you've been so brave and strong. But you don't have to be strong all by yourself anymore. We're going to figure this out together, okay? Amara looked up, her tear-stained face a mix of hope and lingering shame. Really, she whispered. Miss Taylor nodded firmly. Really? Your mom has been working so hard to take care of you and your brother. Now it's time for us to help take care of all of you. Shanice tightened her arms around Amara, looking at Miss Taylor with a mixture of gratitude and lingering hesitation. I don't know what kind of help you can offer, she said softly. Our situation is pretty bad. Miss Taylor took a deep breath, her mind racing with possibilities. Well, first things first, Amara needs proper shoes and clothes for school. I can reach out to our school's clothing donation program. We often have families donate outgrown items that are still in good condition. Amara's eyes lit up at this, but Shanice still looked uncertain. That's very kind, but it's not charity, Mrs. Johnson, Miss Taylor said gently. It's our school community supporting one of our own. Amara deserves to be comfortable and warm at school, just like every other child. Shanice nodded slowly, some of the tension easing from her shoulders. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Encouraged by this small victory, Miss Taylor pressed on. Now about food. Our school has a backpack program where we send students home with non-perishable food items for the weekend. I can make sure Amara is enrolled in that immediately. Really? Amara asked, her eyes wide. Like, real food we can cook? The innocent question broke Miss Taylor's heart anew. She forced a smile, determined to stay positive for Amara's sake. Yes, sweetheart. Real food for you and your family. Shanice pulled Amara closer, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. That would help so much, she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. Miss Taylor nodded, her mind already moving to the next steps. Mrs. Johnson, I know you said you've applied for assistance programs. If you'd like, I can put you in touch with our school social worker. She might be able to help expedite some of those applications or find additional resources you might not know about. For a moment, Shanice looked like she might refuse. Miss Taylor could see the struggle playing out on her face, the need to maintain her independence warring with the reality of their desperate situation. Finally, Shanice gave a small nod. Okay, she said softly. I think that might be good. Amara, who had been listening intently to the adults' conversation, suddenly spoke up. Miss Taylor, she asked hesitantly, does this mean I can have shoes for school now? The innocent question, laden with so much hope and past disappointment, brought fresh tears to everyone's eyes. Miss Taylor knelt down, bringing herself to Amara's eye level. Yes, sweetheart, she said firmly. You'll have shoes for school, and a warm coat for winter, and anything else you need to be comfortable and ready to learn. I promise. Amara's face lit up with a smile, so bright it seemed to chase away some of the shadows in the dim room. She threw her arms around Miss Taylor's neck, hugging her tightly. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. As Miss Taylor returned the hug, she caught Shanice's eye over Amara's shoulder. The gratitude and relief in the mother's gaze were palpable. But there was something else there too, a spark of hope that had been missing before. Gently disentangling herself from Amara's embrace, Miss Taylor stood up. It's getting late, and I should be going. But I want you both to know that this is just the beginning. We're going to work together to make things better, okay? Shanice nodded, standing up to walk Miss Taylor to the door. As they reached the threshold, she hesitated, then reached out to grasp Miss Taylor's hand. I don't know how to thank you, she said softly. For caring, for coming here, for everything. Miss Taylor squeezed her hand reassuringly. You don't need to thank me. This is what community is all about, looking out for each other. I'm just glad I could help. As she walked back to her car, Miss Taylor felt a mix of emotions swirling within her. The situation was even more dire than she had imagined, and she knew there was a long road ahead. But she had also seen the strength and resilience of this family, the love that bound them together even in the darkest times. Sliding into the driver's seat, Miss Taylor took a moment to collect her thoughts. She had a lot of work to do, coordinating with the school social worker, arranging for immediate assistance, and figuring out long-term solutions. But as she started the engine, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She thought of Amara's bright smile at the promise of new shoes, of Shanice's tentative hope as she accepted help. These were the moments that reminded her why she had become a teacher in the first place, to make a difference in children's lives, not just in the classroom, but in the world beyond. As she drove away from the rundown neighborhood, Miss Taylor made a silent vow. She would do whatever it took to help Amara and her family find their way to a brighter future. It wouldn't be easy, and there would likely be setbacks along the way. But she was committed to seeing it through, because sometimes all it takes is one person willing to reach out, to care, to go the extra mile. And in that moment, Miss Taylor knew that her impulsive decision to visit Amara's home had set in motion a chain of events that could change lives. The streetlights flickered as she made her way back to the more familiar parts of town. But in her mind, she could still see the warm glow of hope that had begun to shine in Amara's eyes. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that this was only the beginning of their journey together. As Miss Taylor pulled into her own driveway, her mind was already racing with plans and ideas. She knew that the school had resources available for situations like this, but she also realized that official channels could sometimes move slowly. Amara and her family needed immediate help. Sitting in her car, she pulled out her phone and began making a list. First and foremost, Amara needed shoes and proper clothing. Miss Taylor remembered a local charity that often held clothing drives. She made a note to call them first thing in the morning to see if they had any children's shoes and winter coats available. Next, she thought about the family's food situation. The school's backpack program was a good start, but it was clear they needed more substantial help. Miss Taylor had connections with a local food bank through her church. She added another note to reach out to them about setting up regular food deliveries for Amara's family. As she jotted down ideas, Miss Taylor felt a mix of determination and uncertainty. She knew she was taking on a big responsibility, one that went far beyond her role as a teacher. But she also knew she couldn't turn her back on Amara and her family now that she had seen the depth of their struggles. Finally, Miss Taylor put down her phone and took a deep breath. Tomorrow would be a busy day, filled with phone calls, meetings, and planning. But as she pictured Amara's hopeful face and Shanice's grateful tears, she knew it would all be worth it. Stepping out of her car, Miss Taylor looked up at the night sky. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the spark of hope she had kindled in Amara's home. With renewed energy, she walked into her house, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. The morning after her visit to Amara's home, Miss Taylor arrived at school with a renewed sense of purpose. Her mind was racing with ideas, plans, and a fierce determination to make a difference in the lives of Amara and her family. As she walked through the halls, the usual morning bustle faded into the background, her focus entirely on the task ahead. Her first stop was the office of Mrs. Ramirez, the school social worker. Knocking gently on the open door, Miss Taylor took a deep breath to steady herself. "Mrs. Ramirez, do you have a moment?" The social worker looked up from her computer, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Miss Taylor, good morning. Of course, come in. What can I do for you?" As Miss Taylor sat down, she recounted her visit to Amara's home, describing the family's living conditions and the conversation she had with Shanice. Mrs. Ramirez listened intently, her expression growing more concerned with each detail. "I know I should have waited and gone through proper channels," Miss Taylor finished. "But seeing Amara struggling day after day, I just couldn't sit back any longer. I had to do something." To her surprise, Mrs. Ramirez didn't scold her for overstepping. Instead, the social worker nodded thoughtfully. "I understand why you felt compelled to act, Miss Taylor. While it's true that we have protocols in place for a reason, sometimes situations call for more immediate action. The important thing now is to make sure we provide the right kind of support for Amara and her family." Relief washed over Miss Taylor. "That's exactly what I was hoping to discuss with you. I have some ideas, but I want to make sure we approach this in a way that doesn't embarrass Shanice or make her feel like a charity case." For the next hour, Miss Taylor and Mrs. Ramirez brainstormed ways to help Amara's family. They decided to start with the school's existing resources, the clothing donation program, and the weekend food backpack initiative. Mrs. Ramirez also offered to expedite Shanice's applications for various assistance programs. "What about a more community-wide approach?" Miss Taylor suggested. "I was thinking we could frame it as a general initiative to support families in need, not just Amara's. That way it won't feel so personal or targeted." Mrs. Ramirez's eyes lit up. "That's an excellent idea. We could call it the Oakwood Cares Program or something similar. It would allow us to help Amara's family while also supporting other students who might be struggling." With a plan starting to take shape, Miss Taylor left Mrs. Ramirez's office feeling energized and hopeful. Her next stop was Principal Johnson's office to get his approval for the new initiative. To her relief, Principal Johnson was equally supportive of the idea. "This is exactly the kind of community engagement we need," he said, leaning back in his chair. "I'll send out an email to the staff today, and we can announce it at the next PDA meeting." As the days passed, Miss Taylor threw herself into organizing the Oakwood Cares program. She coordinated with local charities, reached out to community leaders, and rallied her fellow teachers to support the cause. The response was overwhelming. Donations of clothes, shoes, and non-perishable food items began pouring in. Local businesses offered gift cards for groceries and household essentials. A nearby dentist even volunteered to provide free checkups for families in need. Throughout it all, Miss Taylor was careful to keep Amara's family's specific situation confidential. When she delivered the first batch of donated items to Shanice, she framed it as part of the larger school initiative. "We're so grateful for your participation in the Oakwood Cares program, Mrs. Johnson," Miss Taylor said, her arms full of bags. "Your feedback on these items will really help us improve the program for all families involved." Shanice's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she accepted the donations. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. It's more than I ever expected." Miss Taylor smiled warmly. "You're part of our school community, Mrs. Johnson, and communities look out for each other." As weeks turned into months, The changes in Amara became increasingly apparent. She arrived at school each day in clean, well-fitting clothes, her feet snug in new sneakers. The dark circles under her eyes faded, replaced by a healthy glow that spoke of proper nutrition and restful sleep. But the most significant change was in Amara's demeanor. The quiet, withdrawn girl who had tried so hard to hide her struggles began to blossom. She started raising her hand more in class, her voice growing stronger and more confident with each passing day. During recess, Miss Taylor watched with joy as Amara laughed and played with her classmates, no longer held back by ill-fitting clothes or gnawing hunger. The transformation was nothing short of remarkable. One afternoon, as the students were packing up to go home, Amara approached Miss Taylor's desk, clutching a piece of paper in her hands. "Miss Taylor," she said softly, "I made this for you." Miss Taylor took the offered paper, her heart swelling as she looked at the crayon drawing. It showed two figures, one tall, one small, holding hands. Above them, in careful block letters, Amara had written, "Thank you for caring." "Oh, Amara," Miss Taylor breathed, kneeling down to the girl's level. "This is beautiful. Thank you so much." Amara's face broke into a wide smile. "You helped make everything better," she said simply. "Not just for me, but for Mama and Jamal too. You're like a guardian angel." Miss Taylor felt tears pricking at her eyes. She pulled Amara into a gentle hug, marveling at how far they'd come. "You're the real angel, Amara," she whispered. "Your strength and kindness inspire me every day." As Amara skipped out of the classroom, Miss Taylor carefully pinned the drawing to her bulletin board. It would serve as a daily reminder of why she became a teacher in the first place, to make a difference in children's lives. The success of the Oakwood Cares program spread beyond the school walls. Local news outlets picked up the story, praising the community's efforts to support families in need. This attention brought even more resources and volunteers to the cause. One Saturday morning, Miss Taylor stood on the sidewalk outside Amara's house, surrounded by a small army of volunteers. The Oakwood Cares Home Repair Day was about to begin, and the energy in the air was palpable. Shanice stepped out onto the porch, her eyes wide with disbelief. "All these people, they're here to help us?" Miss Taylor nodded, gently guiding Shanice down the steps. "The whole community has come together for this, Mrs. Johnson. Everyone wants to help make your home a safer, more comfortable place for you and the kids." As if on cue, a truck pulled up, loaded with donated furniture. Another volunteer arrived with paint and supplies. The local hardware store had sent over materials to repair the sagging porch and fix the leaky roof. Tears streamed down Shanice's face as she watched her neighbors, some she barely knew, roll up their sleeves and get to work. I never imagined people would care this much," she said, her voice choked with emotion. Miss Taylor squeezed her hand. "This is what community is all about, Mrs. Johnson. We all stumble sometimes, but when we do, there are people ready to help us back up." Throughout the day, the transformation of the Johnson home was nothing short of miraculous. Fresh paint brightened the walls. New furniture replaced the threadbare pieces, and the once dangerous porch became a welcoming entrance. Volunteers planted flowers in the front yard, while others stocked the kitchen with groceries and essentials. As the sun began to set, Miss Taylor stood back, taking in the scene. Amara and Jamal were playing on their new swing set, their laughter ringing out across the yard. Shanice sat on the porch steps, deep in conversation with a neighbor she had never spoken to before. The sense of community, of shared purpose and compassion, was overwhelming. Miss Taylor felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude wash over her. This was more than just fixing a house or providing material goods. This was about restoring hope, dignity, and a sense of belonging to a family that had been struggling alone for far too long. As the volunteers began to pack up, Shanice approached Miss Taylor, her eyes shining with a mix of tears and joy. "I don't know how I can ever thank you," she said, pulling Miss Taylor into a tight hug. "You've changed our lives in ways I never thought possible." Miss Taylor returned the embrace, her own eyes misting over. "You don't need to thank me, Mrs. Johnson. Seeing Amara happy and thriving is all the thanks I need." In the weeks that followed, The changes in Amara continued to amaze and inspire Miss Taylor. The girl who had once been so withdrawn now eagerly participated in class discussions, her hand often the first to shoot up when a question was asked. Her homework, always impeccable, now came with extra credit assignments and creative projects that showcased her growing confidence and curiosity. During parent-teacher conferences, Shanice arrived with a new air of confidence. She spoke proudly of Amara's progress and shared her own news. She had found a better-paying job with more regular hours, thanks to a connection made during the home repair day. "I feel like we can finally breathe," Shanice confided, her smile radiant. "For the first time in years, I'm not constantly worried about how we'll make it to the next day. And it's all because you cared enough to reach out." Miss Taylor felt a lump form in her throat. "You and Amara did all the hard work," she said softly. "I just helped open a few doors." As the school year progressed, Miss Taylor noticed a change not just in Amara, but in the entire school community. The Oakwood Cares program had sparked a renewed sense of compassion and togetherness. Students were quicker to help each other, and parents volunteered more frequently for school events. One morning, as Miss Taylor was setting up for the day's lessons, she heard a soft knock on her classroom door. Looking up, she saw Amara standing there, a shy smile on her face. "Good morning, Amara," Miss Taylor said warmly. "You're here early today." Amara nodded, stepping into the room. "I wanted to talk to you before everyone else got here," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. I wanted to thank you for everything." Miss Taylor knelt down, bringing herself to Amara's eye level. "Oh, sweetheart, you don't have to thank me. Seeing you happy and doing so well in school is all the thanks I need." Amara shook her head, her eyes shining with determination. "But I do need to thank you. You didn't just help me with clothes and food and stuff. You showed me that it's okay to ask for help when you need it. You taught me that being poor doesn't mean I'm not important or smart." Tears welled up in Miss Taylor's eyes as Amara continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Before, I was always scared and ashamed. I didn't want anyone to know how bad things were at home. But now I know that there are people who care. I know that I can do anything if I work hard and believe in myself." Amara paused, taking a deep breath. "You made me feel like I matter, Miss Taylor. Like I have a future." Unable to hold back her emotions any longer, Miss Taylor pulled Amara into a tight hug. "Oh, Amara," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "You have always mattered. You have always been important and smart and capable of amazing things. I'm just so glad I could help you see that in yourself." As they pulled apart, both wiping away tears, Amara reached in her backpack and pulled out a small, wrapped package. "I made this for you," she said, holding it out. "To say thank you." Miss Taylor carefully unwrapped the gift, gasping softly as she revealed a handmade picture frame. Around the edges, Amara had carefully glued seashells and colorful beads. Inside was a photo of Amara and her family, taken on the day of the home repairs. Their smiles were radiant, full of hope and joy. "It's beautiful, Amara," Miss Taylor breathed, tracing the frame with her finger. "I'll treasure this always." Amara beamed, her eyes shining with pride. "I want you to remember that day," she said, "because that's the day everything changed for us. That's the day we learned what it means to be part of a real community." That evening, as Miss Taylor packed up her things to head home, she paused to look around her classroom. The walls were covered with student artwork and projects, each one a testament to the growth and creativity of her students. But her gaze lingered on Amara's latest writing assignment, displayed proudly on the bulletin board. The essay, titled "My Hero," was a heartfelt tribute to Miss Taylor and the Oakwood Cares program. As she read Amara's words, describing how the support of the community had changed her life and inspired her to dream big, Miss Taylor felt a profound sense of purpose wash over her. This, she realized, was why she had become a teacher. Not just to impart knowledge, but to touch lives, to inspire hope, and to show children like Amara that they had the power to overcome any obstacle. As she turned off the lights and closed the classroom door, Miss Taylor made a silent vow. She would continue to be a champion for her students, to fight for those who needed a voice, and to foster a sense of community that extended far beyond the school walls. As the new school year began, Miss Taylor stood at the front of her classroom, surveying the eager faces before her. Among them was Amara, now a year older and radiating confidence. The transformation from the shy, struggling girl of the previous year to this self-assured young student never failed to warm Miss Taylor's heart. "Good morning, class," Miss Taylor began, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "Welcome to a new year of learning and growth. Before we dive into our first lesson, I have an exciting announcement to make." The students leaned forward in anticipation, Amara's eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Thanks to the success of our Oakwood Cares program last year, we've decided to expand it," Miss Taylor explained. "This year, we're not just helping families in need. We're empowering our students to become active participants in making our community better." A murmur of excitement rippled through the classroom. Miss Taylor smiled, remembering the long hours of planning and coordination that had gone into this new initiative. Principal Johnson and the school board had been thrilled with the positive impact of Oakwood Cares, and they'd given her free rein to develop the program further. "Each month, we'll be focusing on a different community project," Miss Taylor continued. "We'll be working with local organizations, learning about social issues, and most importantly, taking action to make a difference." As she outlined the plans for the year, from organizing a food drive to creating a community garden, Miss Taylor couldn't help but notice the way Amara sat up straighter, her eyes shining with determination. It was clear that the events of the previous year had awakened something in the young girl, a desire to give back, to help others the way she had been helped. After class, as the other students filed out for recess, Amara lingered behind. She approached Miss Taylor's desk, her hands clasped in front of her. "Miss Taylor," she began, her voice soft but steady, "I was wondering, for the community projects this year, could I maybe help plan some of them?" Miss Taylor felt a surge of pride. "Of course, Amara. I think that's a wonderful idea. Did you have something specific in mind?" Amara nodded, her words coming faster now as her excitement grew. "Well, I was thinking about how much the Oakwood Cares program helped my family last year, and I thought maybe we could do something to help other kids who are going through tough times. Like maybe a buddy system or something?" Miss Taylor listened intently as Amara outlined her idea. A program where students who had benefited from Oakwood Cares could mentor and support new students joining the program. It was thoughtful, compassionate, and showed a level of empathy that belied Amara's young age. "Amara, that's an incredible idea," Miss Taylor said warmly. "Why don't we set up a meeting with Principal Johnson next week to discuss how we can implement it?" The girl's face lit up with a brilliant smile. "Really? You think it could work?" "I absolutely do," Miss Taylor assured her. "And I'm so proud of you for wanting to help others. You've come so far, Amara, and now you're using your experiences to make a difference for others. That's truly special." As Amara skipped out to join her friends at recess, Miss Taylor felt a familiar warmth in her chest. This was why she had become a teacher, to nurture not just minds but hearts, to help children like Amara discover their own strength and use it to lift others up. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Miss Taylor worked closely with Amara to develop the Buddy System program, which they named Oakwood Allies. They created informational packets, designed training sessions for the student mentors, and even made colorful badges for the participants to wear. When they presented the idea to Principal Johnson, his eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "This is exactly the kind of student-led initiative we need," he said, beaming at Amara. "You should be very proud of yourself, young lady." Amara blushed at the praise but stood tall. "I just want to help other kids the way Miss Taylor and everyone else helped my family," she said softly. As they left the principal's office, Miss Taylor placed a gentle hand on Amara's shoulder. "You know, Amara, you're setting an example for the whole school. You're showing everyone that no matter what challenges we face, we all have the power to make a positive change in the world." The launch of Oakwood Allies was a resounding success. Students who had been shy about accepting help from the Oakwood Cares program opened up to their peers in a way they never had with adults. Amara took her role as lead student coordinator seriously, organizing weekly check-ins and always being available to offer a kind word or a listening ear. One crisp autumn morning, as Miss Taylor supervised the playground during recess, she noticed Amara sitting on a bench with a younger girl. The child was crying softly, and Amara had her arm around her shoulders, speaking in gentle tones. As Miss Taylor approached, she caught snippets of their conversation. "It's okay to feel scared," Amara was saying. "I used to be scared all the time, but you're not alone anymore. We're all here to help you." The younger girl sniffled, looking up at Amara with tear-filled eyes. "Really? You won't think I'm weird or dirty because my family doesn't have much money?" Amara shook her head firmly. "Never. Having less money doesn't make you any less important or special. And trust me, things can get better. My family used to struggle a lot, but with help from the school and the community, we're doing okay now. And we'll help your family too." Miss Taylor felt her throat tighten with emotion as she watched Amara comfort the younger student. She marveled at how much Amara had grown, not just in height or academic ability, but in emotional intelligence and compassion. As the school year progressed, the impact of Oakwood Allies began to ripple through the entire school community. Students who had once been isolated by their circumstances were now fully integrated into school life. The stigma around asking for help began to fade, replaced by a culture of mutual support and understanding. Miss Taylor watched with pride as Amara flourished in her leadership role. The once shy girl was now a confident public speaker, giving presentations to other classes about Oakwood Allies, and even speaking at a school board meeting about the program's success. One afternoon, as Miss Taylor was grading papers, there was a knock at her classroom door. She looked up to see Shanice Johnson standing there, a warm smile on her face. "Mrs. Johnson," Miss Taylor greeted her, rising to her feet. "What a lovely surprise. Please come in." Shanice entered the room, her posture relaxed and confident, a far cry from the stressed, wary woman Miss Taylor had first met over a year ago. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Shanice began, "but I wanted to talk to you about Amara." For a moment, Miss Taylor felt a flicker of concern. "Is everything all right?" Shanice's smile widened. "Everything is more than all right. I wanted to thank you, again, for everything you've done for Amara, for our family, but especially for believing in her." Miss Taylor felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Amara is an extraordinary girl, Mrs. Johnson. It's been my privilege to watch her grow and thrive." Shanice nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "She talks about you all the time, about how you inspired her to start Oakwood Allies, how you've supported her every step of the way. I don't think she would have found her voice without you. Amara had that voice inside her all along," Miss Taylor said softly. "She just needed someone to listen." Shanice reached out, grasping Miss Taylor's hand. "Well, you did more than listen. You gave her wings. And not just Amara. You've changed the lives of so many families in this community. I don't know if you realize how far-reaching the impact has been." As Shanice spoke, she told Miss Taylor about the changes she'd seen in the neighborhood. How families that had once been isolated were now connecting, sharing resources, and supporting each other. How the sense of shame that had hung over struggling families was being replaced by a spirit of community and mutual aid. "And it all started with you," Shanice finished, her voice thick with emotion. "With one teacher who cared enough to look beyond the surface and see the potential in a little girl who didn't even believe in herself." Miss Taylor felt overwhelmed by Shanice's words. She had always hoped to make a difference in her students' lives, but to hear about the broader impact of her actions was humbling. "I just did what any good teacher would do," she said softly. Shanice shook her head. "No, you did more. You didn't just teach, you transformed lives. And I wanted you to know that we see it, we appreciate it, and we'll never forget it." As Shanice left, Miss Taylor sat at her desk, her mind swirling with emotions. She thought back to that first day when she had noticed Amara's bare feet, to the night she had made the decision to visit the Johnson home. She had acted out of a simple desire to help a struggling student, never imagining the ripple effect it would create. The next day, Miss Taylor arrived at school to find an unusual buzz of excitement in the air. Students were huddled in small groups, whispering animatedly. As she entered her classroom, she was greeted by an eruption of cheers and applause. Startled, she looked around to see her students, led by Amara, gathered around her desk. On it sat a large, colorfully wrapped package. "What's all this about?" Miss Taylor asked, genuinely puzzled. Amara stepped forward, her face beaming with pride. "We have a surprise for you, Miss Taylor. It's to say thank you for everything you've done for us, for the whole school." With trembling hands, Miss Taylor unwrapped the gift. Inside was a beautifully bound book. On the cover, in gilt letters, were the words, "The Oakwood Care Story, How One Teacher Changed a Community." As she opened the book, Miss Taylor gasped. Inside were pages and pages of letters, photographs, and artwork. Each entry was from a different family or student whose lives had been touched by the Oakwood Cares program and Miss Taylor's compassion. There were letters from parents who had been able to keep their homes thanks to the resources provided by the program. Drawings from children who had received their first new pair of shoes or warm winter coat. Photographs of community events and home repair days. And woven throughout were stories of hope, of renewed dignity, of lives transformed. Miss Taylor felt tears welling up in her eyes as she turned the pages. She saw familiar faces, Amara and her family, beaming in their newly renovated home. The young girl Amara had comforted on the playground, now smiling broadly as she held up a certificate for academic improvement. I don't know what to say," Miss Taylor managed, her voice choked with emotion. Amara stepped forward, taking Miss Taylor's hand. "You don't have to say anything. We just wanted you to see what a difference you've made, how many lives you've touched." As Miss Taylor looked around at the eager, grateful faces of her students, she felt a profound sense of purpose wash over her. This, she realized, was the true measure of a teacher's impact, not just in test scores or academic achievements, but in the lives changed, the community strengthened, the hope restored. The rest of the school day passed in a blur of emotion and celebration. Word of the surprise gift spread quickly, and Miss Taylor found herself receiving congratulations and thanks from other teachers, staff members, and even parents who stopped by. As the final bell rang and the students filed out, Miss Taylor sat at her desk, still marveling at the book before her. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice Principal Johnson enter the room. "Quite a day, Miss Taylor," he said warmly, causing her to look up with a start. "Oh, Principal Johnson. Yes, it's been overwhelming, to say the least." He nodded, pulling up a chair to sit across from her. "You know, when you first came to me with the idea for Oakwood Cares, I thought it was a nice gesture, a way to help a few struggling families. I never imagined it would grow into all of this." Miss Taylor nodded, still somewhat in awe herself. "Neither did I. I just wanted to help Amara. And in helping one child, you've uplifted an entire community," Principal Johnson said, his voice filled with admiration. "That book, those stories, they're a testament to the power of compassion, of going above and beyond the call of duty." He paused, leaning forward slightly. "Which is why I wanted to talk to you. The school board has been following the success of Oakwood Cares and Oakwood Allies very closely. They're impressed, Miss Taylor. Very impressed." Miss Taylor felt a flutter of nervous excitement in her stomach. "Oh," Principal Johnson smiled broadly. "They want to implement similar programs in other schools across the district, and they want you to lead the initiative." For a moment, Miss Taylor sat in stunned silence. "Me? But I'm just a classroom teacher." "You're far more than that, Miss Taylor. You're a change maker, a community builder. You've shown what's possible when educators truly invest in their students' well-being." The board is prepared to create a new position, Director of Community Engagement and Student Support. They want you to take it. Miss Taylor's mind reeled with the implications. It was an incredible opportunity, a chance to expand the impact of Oakwood Cares to countless other schools and communities. But it would also mean leaving her classroom, leaving students like Amara. As if reading her thoughts, Principal Johnson continued gently. "I know it's a big decision. You'd be moving into an administrative role, which would take you out of the classroom. But think of how many more students you could help, how many more teachers you could inspire to go the extra mile." Miss Taylor nodded slowly, her eyes drifting to the framed photo on her desk, the one Amara had given her, of the Johnson family on the day of their home repairs. "Can I have some time to think about it?" "Of course," Principal Johnson said, standing up. "Take all the time you need. But Miss Taylor, for what it's worth, I think you'd be amazing in this role. You've already changed one community. Imagine what you could do for the entire district." As he left, Miss Taylor sat back in her chair, her mind swirling with possibilities. She thought of all the other Amaras out there, all the students struggling with poverty, hunger, and lack of resources. Could she really make a difference on such a large scale? Lost in thought, she almost didn't notice the small figures standing in the doorway. Looking up, she saw Amara, backpack slung over her shoulder, watching her with a curious expression. "Amara? What are you still doing here, sweetheart?" Amara stepped into the room, her brow furrowed with concern. "I forgot my math book, so I came back to get it." "Are you okay, Miss Taylor? You look worried." Miss Taylor managed a small smile. "I'm not worried exactly, just thinking about some big decisions." Amara nodded sagely, coming to stand beside Miss Taylor's desk. "Is it about the new job Principal Johnson wants you to take?" Surprised, Miss Taylor raised an eyebrow. "How did you know about that?" Amara grinned sheepishly. "I might have overheard a little when I came to get my book. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, honest." Miss Taylor chuckled softly. "It's all right. What do you think about it, Amara? Do you think I should take the job?" The girl was quiet for a moment, her face scrunched in thought. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but sure. I think you should do it." "Really?" Miss Taylor asked, somewhat surprised. "Even though it would mean I wouldn't be your teacher anymore?" Amara nodded, her eyes shining with a wisdom beyond her years. "You'll always be my teacher, Miss Taylor, no matter what. But if you take this job, you can help so many other kids like me. Kids who need someone to believe in them, to fight for them." She paused, reaching out to touch the book of stories on Miss Taylor's desk. "You always tell us that when we're given a gift, we have a responsibility to share it with others. Your gift is the way you care, the way you see the best in people even when they can't see it in themselves. I think you should share that gift with as many people as you can." Miss Taylor felt tears welling up in her eyes for what felt like the 100th time that day. She stood up, pulling Amara into a tight hug. "When did you get so wise, my dear?" Amara giggled, returning the hug. "I learned from the best." Amara left, promising to come by the next morning to hear Miss Taylor's decision. As Miss Taylor sat at her desk, turning the pages of the book filled with stories of hope and transformation, a sense of clarity began to wash over her. The impact of her actions, laid out so vividly before her, was undeniable. She thought about Amara's wise words, about sharing her gift with as many people as possible. With a deep breath, she picked up her phone and dialed Principal Johnson's number. "I've made my decision," she said when he answered. "I'd like to accept the position." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Miss Taylor worked tirelessly to prepare for her new role, collaborating with the school board to outline the expansion of the Oakwood Cares program across the district. She also spent time with her class, ensuring a smooth transition for the teacher who would be taking over. On her last day in the classroom, her students surprised her with a farewell party. There were tears and laughter, hugs, and heartfelt goodbyes. Amara, now a confident leader among her peers, presented Miss Taylor with a handmade card signed by the entire class. "We'll miss you," Amara said, her voice wavering slightly. "But we're so proud of you, Miss Taylor. You're going to help so many other kids and families." Miss Taylor hugged Amara tightly. "And you, my dear, are going to continue leading Oakwood Allies. I know you'll do an amazing job." As she packed up her classroom that evening, Miss Taylor felt a mix of emotions. Sadness at leaving the daily interactions with her students, excitement for the challenges ahead, and a profound sense of purpose. Over the next year, Miss Taylor threw herself into her new role with the same passion and dedication she had shown in the classroom. She worked with schools across the district to implement versions of Oakwood Cares and Oakwood Allies, tailored to each community's specific needs. The impact was extraordinary. Attendance rates improved, family engagement increased, and students who had once been on the brink of dropping out were now thriving. Miss Taylor's approach, which emphasized compassion, community involvement, and student empowerment, was transforming the entire district. The journey that had begun with a pair of bare feet in a classroom had led to a movement that was transforming lives across the district. And Miss Taylor knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, new problems to solve, more lives to touch. But with compassion as her guide and the power of community behind her, she was ready to face whatever came next. Amara's quiet resilience and Miss Taylor's compassionate heart led to a remarkable transformation, not only in Amara's life, but also in the entire community that came together to support her. If Amara's story touched you, be sure to subscribe for more uplifting stories of courage and kindness. And before you go, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in Miss Taylor's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below.